So I'm back in the greenhouse again, and today I wanted to talk about how the greenhouse has performed in spring in its three roles. The first one is a kind of just chill out role, just a place to come where it's nice and warm and bright and, escape from the wild weather that we've had this spring. And in that role, sitting in my comfy chair or just potting on seedlings or whatever I'm doing, it's been really lovely. I've been really happy with it, and really happy with the grow lights and their ability to sort of really brighten up the space even on a really dark and dreary day. So that's role one. It's done well. Second role is as a place to grow seedlings, and in doing that I've primarily been focusing on keeping it above zero, above freezing, all through the year, so over winter and in early spring, and then above 10 degrees centigrade in April and May. Well, most of May actually has been above 10 degrees centigrade anyway without any heating. So in that role it's been fabulous, really. I've really noticed a big difference between the growing in the greenhouse and growing in the polytunnel previously. Just keeping things above freezing has really made growing all the early brassicas, the early calabreses, the early cauliflowers, all of those sorts of things. It's made that much more reliable. I've had no losses, whereas previously I might have had 20-30% losses or something like that. And they've just grown much more predictably, and I've been able to control the timings of them, and I've just had a really abundant harvest all the way through spring, which has just been really nice. Because obviously spring, traditionally the hungry gap, and we definitely haven't had a hungry gap here. So that's been great. And then keeping it above 10 degrees centigrade has been pretty expensive. So it's cost me £50 to keep it above 10C, and ideally I would have kept it above 13. I did notice, for example, and I still am noticing, a lot of male flowers on the cucumbers, which is a sign of stress. Some fruit set took a little bit longer than I would have expected on the peppers, because it was just a little bit too cold at night for them. So if they'd have been above 13, I think I would have got fruit set earlier. I don't think the cucumbers wouldn't have been as stressed, and maybe some of the tomatoes would have ripened a little bit earlier. So yeah, I mean, how much extra would it cost? Probably an extra £20. So it would probably cost me about £70 to keep it above 13 degrees. Right, so is it worth it? Well, certainly the volume of crops that I've taken through here and planted has been amazing, and that's going to deliver thousands of pounds worth of food. But most of that could have been done in the polytunnel. It's just more convenient to do it in the greenhouse, and it just looks nicer and everything. What I wouldn't have been able to do is to grow crops to maturity like I've done in here. So I've grown early peas to maturity and then taken them outside. I've grown early courgettes to maturity, and they're still in here and they're still producing loads and loads. Quite a bit earlier than the ones in the polytunnel. I've grown a lot of tomatoes to maturity, and they're all ripening now at quite a rate. And so there, obviously that's quite a bonus in terms of having tomatoes this early, but it's also a financial bonus because I buy tomatoes from the supermarket. It's one of the few things I buy. I have grown cucumbers to maturity nice and early, and we've been harvesting those all the way through May. And I've got my French beans there. They should be ready in early June, and they look a lot healthier than the ones in the polytunnel. And I've got a lot of peppers, which are just starting to ripen now, and they're okay. They're looking pretty good. They're a little bit small, but an early first pick of the peppers is always a little bit small, so I'm not too worried about that. And so I've taken lots of potatoes. So where all these peppers are down here, these were all potatoes down here. So I've taken a lot of potatoes out here, brought those on near to maturity, then taken them to the allotment, or just left them outside down there to finish off. And also started a lot of second early tomatoes, which were all down here, and they're now outside, and you can see they're completely awash with flowers, but obviously no tomatoes on those yet. So I'm pretty pleased with that on balance, and I added it all up and I've taken £76 worth of harvest out of the greenhouse in spring that I wouldn't have had in the polytunnel. So that's a bonus from having the greenhouse, and I'm expecting to take another £80 worth of harvest out of here, and that again I wouldn't have had just using the polytunnel, and that's things like more cucumbers, more peppers, more beans, more courgettes, etc., etc. So, and a lot more tomatoes. So that easily covers my heating cost. It's a long introduction to get to that point. Yes, I've covered my heating costs, and I've more than covered my heating costs. I've double covered the heating costs. We're at 8 to 13 degrees centigrade. Now, heating it above zero, I already covered those costs from the harvests in winter of the salad crops out of here. So basically, didn't pay for the greenhouse. The greenhouse is paid for from the harvest from the allotment as a whole, from the garden as a whole. But in terms of actual harvest from the greenhouse, actually in spring, it's paid for the heating in spring, and it's paid for the heating in winter from the actual harvest in winter. And of course, it's grown lots and lots of seedlings which have been planted out on the allotment and in the polytunnel, etc., etc. So I would say it's been a resounding success, actually much better than I was hoping for. I'm hoping to extend the season into autumn as well. I've got a comprehensive guide to how I designed this greenhouse, how I've managed this greenhouse, what I've planted in the greenhouse so far, how much it's cost me, how I'm heating it, all that sort of thing, and my notional plans for what I'm going to have in this greenhouse in autumn and winter and next year. So I hope you found this useful. My name's Steve, this is the Seaside Kitchen Garden and Allotment channel, and I'll see you soon.